Cool. Yeah, it was working.
Maybe you have to open the display preference.
Yes. Displays.
Detect. Right. Maybe you should eventually make it a mirror to be easier for you.
Oh, that's on here
Yeah,
anyway.
because you have it on the same screen that way.
Cool. Desktop. Montreal-Python. All right. Hi everyone, my name's Alistair Porter. I'll be talking about audio fingerprinting, metadata correction, Python, those kinds of things. So who am I? I need to turn that off. Great. I've got a background in computer science. I'm studying at McGill University, doing a master's in music technology. I'm working in the digital libraries lab in the music technology area at McGill, so very interested in understanding music, sorting music, searching music, getting systems for musicologists to be able to understand music better, trying to help them make their lives easier. I write a lot of Python, I write a lot of music apps, some stats on my GitHub for instance. Over half of my things are music, over half of those things are written in Python. Why do I like Python? Well, obviously you're all here, you all know, it's great for prototyping. It's amazing to just sit down and say, I've got an idea, let's just bash something out. Then take the same code. Python's fine as a production service as well. I find it really useful when I do a lot of API work, so a lot of music companies popping up all over the place now that have sort of systems where send us a web request and we'll tell you everything we know about this artist, or send us a web request and we'll give you recommendations. It turns out that URL lib2, you just mash up a really simple API and get sort of Python access to all of this. Feeds back in XML or JSON or something. Really easy to understand that with Python. So music and metadata. Well, where does the problem start? Say you saw this new album was out, you went and bought it, maybe. And so you get some music from a particular source. Hasn't shown up too well there, but people don't actually know how to nicely organize stuff. So what's the problem? People are really bad at naming music. People are really inconsistent at naming music. So you've got the album released last year, you've got the album released this year, or they've changed the capitalization a bit, there's an extra space, someone typed all of this out by hand, they spelt something incorrectly. It's a real mess. And if you've got your own plug computer that you want to have all your music on, you want to search for something, you want everything to come up when you search for it, you sort of want to do something about this, about your music. So what can you do? Well, you can go to the internet and actually say, surely someone's gone to the effort of putting all this together and making it work properly. So this is where stuff like Musicbrainz comes in. Musicbrainz is an online community database of their aim is to be Wikipedia for music. They want to have information about every album ever released, every musician, all the tracks on them, and a whole bunch of other associated metadata along with it. So you take something like Musicbrainz, it gives you a track list, that's great, but you want more. We're looking for a comprehensive metadata solution. Well, you could go take a look at Amazon. What does Amazon give you? Amazon gives you cover art. Amazon gives you a couple of other things as well. You can work out where to actually pay some money for a album if you really wanted. Last.fm has tags. These are all sort of manually typed in by people who have listened to this music. What does this give you? Well, if you have actually a whitelist of genres, for instance, you can suddenly work out what genre a an album is or a track is just by scraping an API. And Musicbrainz very nicely actually gives you all of this extra data. They're very heavy on relationships and linked information. So Musicbrainz typically will have a link to Wikipedia, so you can actually look up the band or the album on Wikipedia. Extra information, link to Last.fm, link to Discogs, link to Amazon again, so you can actually get the image. And it turns out that this is just a matter of saying, where is the album on Musicbrainz, and get all the comprehensive metadata that you want for it. So what do you do with all of this? Well, you write something like album identify. This is something I've been working on with some friends for quite a number of years now, and it started with this sort of itch to scratch. We've got all this music from various sources, some more reputable than others, and we want some consistency. We want REM to have dots after each letter. We want Queen to be spelt correctly. We want Led Zeppelin to have the right number of P's, for instance. So started off as sort of a sort of mishmash of various Python scripts, and sort of slowly grown. What can it do? It can now rename MP3 files, it can rename FLAC files, it can rename OGG files. We've also got a suite of tools that let you rip CDs, so batch processing, get as many computers as you want, put a CD in each of them, run the script, it ejects the CD when it's done, you put the next one in, put the CD in, it starts ripping again, automatically encodes everything with FLAC, goes through, gets all the metadata, names everything really nicely, and puts it in a folder at the end. So if we want to get to this stage, what do? We actually start right at the very top and say, were you ripped from a CD? If you ripped from a CD, we also rip the table of contents. It means if you want to write it back to CD in the future, table of contents is sort of as accurate as the CD you ripped it from. Musicbrainz also lets you map a table of contents to an album, so you can go ask Musicbrainz, hey, do you know about this table of contents? And it says, yep, it's this album, and that's easy. Absolutely nothing more you need to do. If there's no table of contents, which is probably more typical than not, we use an audio fingerprinting technique. I'll get into that shortly. And if the audio fingerprinting doesn't work, we can actually do a text lookup as well. We can do a search, actually say, can you find this artist, can you find this album, and then go on like that. Audio fingerprinting, if anyone doesn't know, I'd be happy to talk to you about it further. This is certainly a couple of presentations in itself. But in general, take an audio signal and turn it into a short representation, so a numerical representation. It's a lot smaller than actually comparing one file to another file, but the other big advantage of it is it represents sort of perceptual features rather than the audio signal itself. And this means if, for instance, you have something encoded in MP3, something encoded in FLAC, something encoded in a low bitrate in MP3, the fingerprint is typically much the same. The fingerprint of a file is much the same. So you can sort of be sure that you actually get a match which is correct. So say our CD-TOC lookup didn't work, we do a fingerprint search. The way Album Identify does this is it looks through each of the files in, say, your directory, and each of those files you fingerprint it, and you get a result back. You go to Musicbrainz and you say, hey, I've got this fingerprint, what is it? The advantage of this is if you've got badly named files, you've got bad metadata, you actually ignore all of that. You're using musical content only. So Musicbrainz is going to come back and say, well, that's this song. And that's great because Musicbrainz also has the relationship to say, well, this song is part of this album. So if we've got 10 tracks in an album, you look all of those tracks up in Musicbrainz and you get a list back. And maybe the first track is part of the album that you're actually interested in. It's also part of a best of compilation. It's part of a remix album that someone's put together. But ideally, you'll get to the point where all of these files have at least one album, say the original album, attached to them, and you say, hey, well, that must be us. And so we find all of the tracks we find the album that all of the tracks are part of, and that's great. So now we know what album on Musicbrainz it is. What do you now? We've got Musicbrainz, we've got the artist, we've got track information, we've got album information. We can go to Last.fm, we can look up the genre, we can add that in as a tag, we can go to Amazon, we can download the image. We also check, if there's no relationship to Amazon, we look for a folder.jpg. We'll look in the tags of the image of the MP3 or the audio file. So if someone's put an image in there, we'll try that, and we'll look for the biggest one. We'll try that and use that. So Musicbrainz tells us exactly where all this is. We actually put all of this in every single file that we write. Storing text is cheap. Really, I mean, when you've got a 50 megabyte FLAC file, who cares if you've got 100K JPEG inside it? So we go all out. We put as much metadata in as possible. And then we save it. So we've got we wrote a custom MP3, ID3 parser and serializer, which you would think, you just read the spec and it tells you how it works, but it turns out everyone else didn't actually read the spec. So a lot of bugs to find and fix in that. We do OGG and FLAC, as I said. We name the files. We try and do everything as correctly as possible. So ideally, you hit the run button and everything happens. We try and be sane about the way we name things. If you don't actually like it, you can change it, but we don't encourage it. We do replay gain sort of over the entire album, so everything sounds about right. We're a good citizen to Musicbrainz. We'll submit fingerprints back. We've got a bunch of scripts that say, well, hey, this album's not in Musicbrainz. How about you click this button and go and enter it in yourself, and you'll get sort of points in the Musicbrainz community for doing that. So what are we doing with Album Identify next? It turns out that in the last sort of 12 months or so, Musicbrainz has been working hard on a new version of their site, and they've released that now. Most of our stuff kind of still works, but runs into problems. We're working at fixing that. I was going to show a demo, but unfortunately this next point doesn't make it work very well. There's a fingerprinting service that Musicbrainz has been using. They were recently bought by Sony. Sony has its own fingerprinting service. They're not interested in keeping this old one around, and I think people have just sort of forgotten it exists. So the fingerprinter sort of doesn't work at the moment, which is the key feature that actually makes it a good system. So that's a little unfortunate, but we're working on, Musicbrainz has a new fingerprinter that they're working on, and we're working to integrate that. We want more metadata, we want more metadata, we want more metadata. So there's no reason why we couldn't scrape Wikipedia, put a profile of the band in all the files, do some analysis on the files, put that there. I mean, there should be no reason why we just can't get as much as we can, lyrics, things like that, as much information as we can on each album, and put it all out. So some more information if you're interested. Musicbrainz, Album Identify, check it out. It's all in Python. We're all friendly. We accept pull requests. Hopefully we'll be spending some time on it in the next couple of months to get it polished up. Couple of fingerprinting technologies that we're looking at using. Acoust ID is a big Musicbrainz push. Echo Print is a big push by the Echo Nest, which is a music intelligence company in Boston. Last.fm, if you want to check that out, if you want to scrub all of your stuff. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
I've seen other systems not audio related using fingerprints.
Right.
Sooner or later, people change their fingerprinting algorithm.
Yes.
That may happen once or twice over time. So would it be an option to support multiple fingerprinting, like the Sony one?
Yep. So part of, I mean, one of the big things, because we use Musicbrainz, and Musicbrainz is the one that's very tied to a particular fingerprinter. So they say this fingerprint for this fingerprinting system is attached to this song, and only when someone submits a new fingerprint for that song using a new system. Can we use it? So what we're moving towards with Album Identify is a lot of different identification strategies. So as I said, table of contents on a CD is one strategy, text lookup is another strategy, fingerprinting with this fingerprinter could be one strategy, and fingerprinting with another fingerprinter is another strategy. So we could support it, but it's not just a matter of us. There's sort of a wider infrastructure that needs to allow that as well. Question in the back? No? Any more? Nope. Come and see me maybe during the break or afterwards if you want to check it out. I try and get a demo going before we cross our fingers and everything works. Great, thank you. You're going to get Andrew up next.